Welcome to program number 5. It's a great topic, working past clients and centers of influence. You've already heard me mention it several times as we've come to this point in this program, and I want to spend time on it now because it is virtually what I believe the strongest building block to a long-term productive, profitable business. Now, I've mentioned several times already that there's been many criticisms of what I teach people to do. And one of the criticisms for many, many years about Mike Ferry was, he never teaches you to call on his past clients or centers of influence. But if you take back in 1975, the original actual little cassette program I produced, and if you ever got to see this, you'd laugh like I do, which is a picture of me on the back with the open collar and the gold chains and great big hair and all the rest, which was 1975. The first thing I talked about on that particular cassette program was the importance of building your center of influence. See, it's something I've talked about for the last 30 years, but because my name and the words cold calling seem to go together, that's what people think of. See, my belief is the only way to build a long-term, enormously productive, and very profitable business is to build a base of business with people that know who you are, understand what you do, respect that you can do it, and then work with you for long periods of time. If you look at the Mike Ferry organization today, the major portion of our client base today, and we have virtually 200,000 real estate clients throughout North America, are past clients and come from centers of influence. Large real estate brokers who refer their agents to us, past clients that come to our seminars time and time again. My goal with each one of you is to make you a client for life of my company and to treat you in a way that you can sit back and say, this experience has been a great experience and one I want to continue for a long time. That's exactly what we're going to do with you and your past clients and with your centers of influence. So we want to start by talking about what I call the 10% rule. And the 10% rule revolves around the fact that you're going to have a list of names of people that either you've worked with in the past clients, new licensees, it doesn't apply obviously, and or centers of influence, which of course applies to all of us here. And the centers of influence are those people that we know through any one of a variety of places. Let's take some examples. Your center of influences: neighbors, friends, family, people on your Christmas card list, your personal phone directory, people you do business with on a regular basis, people that you've known through your children, through your schooling, through education, through your job, through your former jobs, through your spouse and their jobs, through social situations, maybe clubs and organizations belong to, from the Chamber of Commerce to a church group to a golf club. These are all people that you know and that know you, that many times you never relate to them in their profession as they don't relate to you in your profession, but you relate to each other because of the circumstances where you've met and maintained that friendship and that relationship. Well, you and I both know there may be any place from a minimum of 100 to several thousand people that you actually know, most of on a first-name basis, that if they ever sat down and thought about it and you ever had the time to talk to them, would probably feel very comfortable referring business to you and helping you build your business, as I'm sure you would help them build theirs. So the center of influence business is critical, and that's why the 10% rule becomes a critical part of it. Here's the 10% rule. If you work with these people over a given period of time, and you work with them with a great sense of accomplishment and a sense of appreciation and a sense of service and a sense of value in what you talk to them about, 10% of that group on your list will give you business every year, either from themselves or people they know. So let's take, for example, you have 250 names on your center of influence list. My belief is if you do what we're going to talk about today in this program, over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, 10% of those people, or 25, will give you a transaction. You've heard me say, I believe that every person can add 25 transactions to their annual business. It can be done in most cases just working past clients and centers of influence effectively. So the first thing we have to do is we have to work on accumulating the list. So what do I want you to do? If you're an experienced veteran, take every transaction you've done since you started, and put their name, address, and phone number in some type of a file. We'll talk about the file itself a little bit later in this program. Then you take everybody that you know, okay, from the milkman to the postman to the person you buy your gas from the person, the dry cleaners, the manager of the local store that you buy your food at, okay, everybody that you know. And everybody that you've met, and you put all those names together, and you accumulate the largest list you can possibly think of, knowing that you're going to keep adding to that list repetitively as your business continues and continues to grow. So the key to start is to build the list. Now, let me tell you, that is the hardest thing for most agents to do, to sit down with a pen and paper and start looking at who you're going to talk to. See, watch. I want you to go to your personal phone directory. I want you to go to your Christmas card list. I want you to think about your neighbors. Think about your friends, the people you met through your church groups, your golf club, your social. Think about those lists. Take the lists that you have available and start marking off the ones that you know reasonably well, that you have a relationship with, that you can talk to, communicate with. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Bob. How you been? What's going on? How's the kids? How's the family? All those names together, okay? And I think in most cases, you should set a goal to have between 250 and 500 names in the next year to 18 months. That should be the minimum that you should have to make this work. Then think about, once you've started building it, then you think about the fact that you're going to get 10% of them to pay you a reasonably high return, which is a transaction to you, okay, in the course of a calendar year. We have a great agent down in Atlanta, Georgia, that we worked with for many, many years until she left the real estate business and started a new concern. And she had, at one point when I was coaching her, she had 860 names in her center of influence past client list. And of course, she worked the list very well. So I said to her one day, so how many transactions annually are you getting from that list? Well, guess what the answer was? 80 transactions, right at 10%. And I said, have you ever stopped to calculate how many people actually give you those 80 transactions? And she said, well, what's interesting, of the 800 names, there's about 200 that virtually give me 80 transactions every year. I said, well, how often do you talk to those 200? She goes, well, probably every month to 6 weeks I talk to all of them. And it results in 80 transactions a year. I went, wow. I said, well, here's a thought for you. What if you expanded those that you talk to that much from 80 to 100, from 100 to 120 over a given period of time? How big could your business become? She was doing 200 transactions a year at the time, of which 80, now think about that, 40% of the total business came from this list. Now, she was a great prospector, a great listing agent, great at lead follow-up, great at pre-qualifying. She was a great agent. When she took the test in our program number 2, believe me, she scored high every single time. But watch this. She still wasn't maximizing her return. See, I said to her one day, she could do 400 transactions a year instead of 200 if she just worked the list the way she could possibly work that list. So first thing we have to understand, it's the only way to build a long-term productive, profitable business. The 10% rule becomes the standing invitation to you to build the business and make it work in your favor. And then knowing that you have to work every day to expand it and to build it and make it grow. Now, I tell people all the time, if you have a list, if you've already put it together, okay, and you've already started the process, you'll want to take and look carefully at the names and divide them into 3 categories. Okay? Divide all the names into 3 categories. Category A are those people that will absolutely give you business on a regular basis if you ask. Okay? Category B is those that would give you business if you asked. Now, you already know which people you can talk to real estate about all the time. Now, here's what I don't understand. Why don't you talk to everybody about real estate all the time? The old joke I told for years was too many agents are what we call secret agents. They're going in disguise. Somebody says, what do you do? And they almost are embarrassed to tell people what they do. So you take a look at your list. Let's say you have 300 names on your list. And there's, say, 30 or 40 that would give you business all the time if you asked. So the question is, why don't you ask? And the answer is almost always the same, and I hear this all the time, and it's too bad, is I don't ask because I don't want to embarrass myself, and I don't want to embarrass them, and I don't want them to think that I'm begging for business, and I don't want them to think that I'm broke and that I need it. Wait a minute. Everybody we know, you and I, knows somebody that's going to buy or sell real estate. And they're always welcome to give that name to somebody in real estate if the person in real estate wants it and asks for it. So my belief is you have an obligation because of the great service you offer. You have to go through the process of saying to all the people you know, here's what I do, here's the service I offer, can I work with you and the people that you know? And you'd be shocked how many will say yes. So A, those that will give you business. B, those that would give you business if you asked. And then also on this list is category C, ones that you have on your list that you really don't like and probably don't like you, to which I always say get rid of them. Because let's say you have 200 names on your list and you go through and you call 10 or 12 every day and you're doing a good job of follow-up and you're doing your job right. And then you come across this name. Here's Billy Bob. And you go, oh, I hate that son of a gun. Gosh, I don't know why I have him on my list. Oh, darn it. And then you get yourself into a negative thought. And then you quit calling the next 5 or 10 because of the response of one. If you've got one on your list you don't like, watch. Pick it out, rip it in half, throw it in the trash. Okay? So you got to really take a look at your list and see what you really have. What is on that list? What's available? What can you work with? What can you build and grow from? And what can you take from that list every year? I believe the 10% rule will work in your favor every time if you choose to use it. Now, I want you to think about how to make this thing work in your favor. The past clients and centers of influence will always give you exactly what you expect or ask for. So therefore, my belief is the first thing you do is you figure out how to treat these people with the highest level of respect, because they are business sources for you. And you always respect anybody who's a business source. So my thought is this. If I don't respect myself, I can't get them to respect me. The more I respect myself, the more they'll respect me. The more respect I give to them, the more respect I get back in return. So then you have to say to yourself, okay, how do I maximize my respect for these people and who they are and what they do? And how do I maximize my respect for myself? The answer, learn how to sell, learn how to give good service, learn how to provide great value, learn how to do your job at a level that nobody else they know can perform at. So, my belief is this. As my confidence goes up, as my belief in myself increases, and I talk to my centers of influence past client, I start to influence them in a way where they say, you know what? Dealing with Mike Ferry is really a smart decision. Therefore, I'm happily going to recommend him to a neighbor and or a friend, somebody else I know, because watching him work and watching the results he gets and watching the service he performs is so good that I know other people can take advantage of it. I will share this with you. I used to get referrals in real estate, and it was kind of funny because, as I was younger, I was told many times that I was a little bit too tough and a little bit too aggressive. And now that I'm in my 60s, of course, I'm real mellow, as you can tell by watching these particular tape programs, and I'm easygoing and all the rest. But I was very aggressive in my approach to selling real estate. I mean, if I got a lead, I went after that lead. If I got a referral, I went after that referral. I was unmerciful. Either they worked with me or I threw them in the trash can, and it was very quick and very efficient. And if they're going to work with me, they did it my way or else. So I was very aggressive. So it was not uncommon that I would get a phone call from a previous buyer or seller, and it would be like this. Hi, this is Mike. Can I help you? Hi, Mike. This is Mrs. Smith. Now, we have a friend who's thinking about selling. Now, we told him what you're like, but we told him you're the best guy to work with them. And I'd say, what do you mean you told him what I was like? Well, we told him what you were like. We just told him what you were like, but we know you're the best guy for him. I'd say, thanks. I'd call the people. And they were all set up for me to deal with. See, if you don't think that you can do the job, don't call them. If you don't think that you're good enough to do the job, don't work to get that business. If you're not the kind of person that can follow up and do a great job and respect them and yourself, don't anticipate you'll get a lot of business from these people. The center of influence and past clients are the greatest gold mine for a real estate person in the history of real estate if you work it all the time. So I wrote down a thought here that I want to share with you. I said we must define in detail the services we provide if we want them to feel comfortable giving us referrals long term. We have to, now listen carefully, okay? We have to define in detail, okay, not only the service we provide, but the quality of service. See, quite honestly, guys and gals, it is many times much easier to deal with somebody you've never seen before and will never see again in real estate. Because, see, they can't judge you against anything else you've done. See, you're holding an open house and a buyer walks in and you kind of build a little relationship and you feel good and you take them out 3 days later and you sell them a house and you could mumble and fumble and stumble and script the whole deal. They don't know the difference because they don't know what you are, what you aren't, what you can and cannot do. But a past client who's already dealt with you knows the difference. So you have to define your service, okay? Let's take this example. What separates you from every other agent in the office when it comes to showing property to a buyer? What makes you good at showing property to buyers? What makes you the person that buyers would want to work with? What makes you a magnet of buyers trying to find you because of the quality that you offer? Take a look at listing. What about your listing presentation is so powerful and so strong that it's so much better than anybody else in the office that referrals that come in will want to come to you? What about your listing presentation would all of your existing clients say, are you kidding? My neighbor's going to sell. You got to call Mike Ferry. Your center of influence have to look at what you do and say, are you kidding? Listing property? This guy's the best. See, it's the definition of the service. For me, and we'll talk about this more in a later program, it was defining what I called a plan of action. And the plan of action was nothing more than what I would do for a seller if I listed their home to get their home sold. See, it's the definition of the service. See, in real estate, if you don't know what you're doing, you can work with anybody. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can't work with your past clients and centers of influence time and time again because they'll catch on to the fact you don't know what you're doing. Watch this example. I had a mastermind group I belonged to for many years, and it was a wonderful group. It was probably, I'm going to guess, 8 or 10 prominent speakers. If I mentioned their names, you would know all of them. And I wouldn't do that because it was embarrassing. And we had many, many discussions about the business, how to work with people like yourself, how to train you, etc. And I had come up with this idea that I thought these action workshops that I do would be a great way of helping a real estate person build a long-term business. So I said to the group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an action workshop where I see the people day after day after day after day and teach them how to sell. And this group said, are you kidding? I said, no. Why would you say, am I kidding? They said, why would you want to go back and see the same people time and time again? I said, because I think what I have to offer has value to them. I think the service I have could help them build their business. I think that makes sense. Now, believe it when I tell you that none of them supported what I was going to do. They all thought I was crazy. Now, here we are, 25 years later. Half of them are no longer speakers, not speaking in real estate if they do speak at all. They all have nice little businesses, and because of people like you and the service I offer and the respect we give to each other, I have one of the largest businesses in this industry in the nation. And it's all coming from past clients and centers of influence. As I said to start this particular program, if you're not a past client, we want you as a client. We want you to take these services we offer, apply them to your business, build your business, just like we want you to apply your services to your buyers and sellers to build your business, and then we have a long-term relationship. I wrote down a thought here, okay? If you're going to work your past clients and centers of influence, believe me when I tell you, you can't be afraid to take charge and be in control. You know, we all say there's 4 basic personality styles: the driver personality, the amiable, the expressive, and the analytical. Well, it has been deemed through testing that I am a driver personality style. Therefore, to take control isn't very difficult. If your past clients see that you cannot take charge of a transaction, they're not going to give you referrals. If your centers of influence see you as a weak, mealy-mouthed, wishy-washy salesperson, they're not going to give you referrals for future business. See, if I have well-defined services, if I know what I'm doing, and I'm confident that I can do it, and I respect myself and I respect the person giving me the referral, then I can take charge and be in control. And if I take charge and I'm in control, watch, I win. I wrote down, that's what people want, and that's what they will pay for, and they will refer people to you if you will take charge and take control. How do you take charge, take control? Let's go back to building skills. Building skills is the answer to taking charge and taking control. Past clients, centers of influence. But I also wrote down, with your past clients, centers of influence, it is absolutely imperative. Now listen to me. And I want you to listen to this carefully. It's imperative that you do not ever do anything but tell them 100% the truth during a transaction. Now, in real estate, there are real estate people that don't tell the truth. Now, I know that's hard to believe. I'm not talking to you. I know that would never happen to you. There are real estate people that don't tell the truth. They walk into a seller. Oh, I can get you $500,000 for this home, no problem. It's a lie. Oh, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes to get this home sold. It's a lie. Oh, I advertise all the time. It's a lie. See, people in selling, not all of them, some of them lie all the time. If I'm going to build a long-term relationship with a past client center of influence, I got to look them right in the eye and tell them the truth. Mary and Bob, you gave me a referral, which I appreciate. I went and talked to the Smiths. They want $100,000 more for their home than what it's worth, and I told them it would never sell at that price, and that's the truth. Now, I appreciate the referral, but I want you to know why I did not list the property. They go, oh, thanks. Gosh, I'm glad you told me the truth. But on a listing presentation, if I get a referral, I got to tell them the truth. Because, see, by telling the truth to these people, you never have to worry about what you've said previously, never have to worry about what you're going to say next. But, see, if you're just cold calling people and picking people up off the street, I mean, if you don't tell them the truth, they don't know the difference, and you can build a business that way, but is it a business built on a solid rock foundation that can do high volume? And the answer is no. I wrote down, if you're going to really work your center of influence past client list, you have to prove that you're willing to outwork the competition. You have to prove that not only are you willing to do it, but you can do it. And you do that by displaying the services and how you operate and perform those services. See, I had this theory when I started building this business 30 years ago, because there were a lot of people doing what I was doing 30 years ago, and I kept saying to myself, I'm going to outwork them. I'm going to outwork them. I'm going to outwork them. The clients that I'm working with are going to know that I'll work harder. You may not like what I say. You may not like what I do, but honest to goodness, I'm going to work harder than anybody else in this industry to prove that I can build this business. Watch, you can do the same thing. It isn't exhausting. It isn't mentally exhausting. It's just performing and giving to people what they deserve, which is good service. Watch, outwork the competition. If you develop the reputation among this group of 250 to 500 people that you're going to outwork the competition and that you can provide results, guess what? You'll get more referrals than you ever imagined. It's exciting to watch. I wrote down this thought. To keep momentum in your favor, and to keep the system working, you have to talk to everybody on your list a minimum 4 times a year. And then 4 times a year, you have to send them a short letter or a postcard. 8 times a year, they have to have contact with you. It's that repetition. They know you're in real estate. Now, watch this. People say to me, well, I've got friends that are, in other businesses, and they referred their friends to other realtors and not to me. And I went, you're kidding. No, it's happened to me a lot. Do your friends know that you're in real estate? Well, I told them once. I said, wait a minute. You have a close friend that's an attorney. You have a close friend that works at the grocery store, that owns a gas station. Right. And you told them once that you were in real estate. Right. And they referred their business to some other realtor. Right. So they think of you as a friend. Right. And I can't believe they did that to me. Wait a minute. Freeze on that thought. They're thinking of you as a friend. They don't think of you as their realtor because you don't remind them on a repetitive basis that you are their friend, but you're also their realtor. See, they have to create a connection between the two. See, you've created the friendship with your friend that owns the gas station, but you haven't created the connection that you're also the realtor. So you don't call friends and say, hey, do you know Chuck, the gas station guy? You say, do you know Chuck, my friend? See, if you're going to refer people to Chuck, you don't say Chuck, my friend. You say Chuck, the gas station guy. They have to refer to you as Mike, the real estate person. People do business with people that they know, they trust, they believe in, they can work with, but they have to know the business you're in. If you're embarrassed about being in real estate, guess what? It doesn't work. So watch. 8 times a year, you're going to be in touch with these people. 4 times by phone, 4 times by mail. A short little postcard. Just wanted to remind you I'm in real estate. Nobody that wants to buy or sell, give me a call. Want to make sure everything's okay with you and your family. Look forward to seeing you. See, if you keep up the communication, you can make it work. Okay? Now, here's the interesting challenge that you face. There are certain past clients, if you've been in the business a while, and there's certain people in your center of influence that either communication has broke down or you've lost the relationship or something happened or you got a little spat about something and things aren't the way they used to be. These are all called normal human situations. My belief is when you look at your list with all the names, you look at the ones that maybe the relationship has deteriorated, you got to have the courage to call them back. Watch this example. You sell somebody a house. And a week before the closing, the interest rates go up and the appraisal comes in low and the deal gets a little sideways and closing costs change and everybody's a little angry and there's a lot of emotions involved and you're on the defense and they're attacking you because you should give up your commission to pay for the change in the interest rates and I'm not giving them my commission, and the deal finally closes and there's a little bit of anger, and then you say, well, I can't call them back. They were mad at me. And then 3 years later, you're driving through the neighborhood and there's a for sale sign by a competitor on the home that you sold. And they've listed it for $100,000 more than they paid for it with somebody else, and you can't believe this. So you knock on the door, and they answer, hey, Mike, gosh, we haven't seen you for 3 years. Well, I know. Why did you list with Mrs. Jones? Because we never talked to you. See, how much business do we lose because at some point in the relationship, it got a little hazy, a little foggy, a little screwy, and then we didn't follow up? I believe this. Anybody that's ever worked with you in real estate before will work with you again if you maintain the relationship. Let's say something did go wrong on that transaction. It got a little screwy. And you wait and it's closed and you're a little uncomfortable. So you call them back. Hi, this is Mike. I owe you an apology. You're kidding for what? Well, I know the transaction got screwy at the end. I owe you an apology. You know what 90% of them will say? Oh, don't worry about it, Mike. We love the house. Thanks for taking care of us. But if you don't make the call, guess what happens? So therefore, how much business are you losing because the relationship got sideways and you didn't have the courage to follow up? I also made a very important note here that when you're going to ask for referrals from your centers of influence and past clients, you need to be very specific when you ask for referrals. Now, let me tell you what I mean by specific. You got a best friend at your tennis club. Okay, and you play tennis once a week with your best friend and you're doubles partners, and he has his job and you have yours, and the relationship's been going on for years. So you very casually say, hey, Jim, who do you know that wants to buy or sell some real estate? And he goes, gosh, can't think of anybody at the time. Well, if you think of anybody, don't forget I'm in real estate. Okay, see you next week for tennis at 7 o'clock. Watch, that doesn't work. Hey, Jim, who do you know on your job that's talking about buying or selling real estate? Who of your neighbors is talking about buying or selling real estate? Who in your family has been talking about real estate? See, when you're very specific when you ask for referrals, when you're very specific, that takes the person's mind to a specific group of people that they can think about. Who on your job, and who at the tennis club, and who that you play golf with, and who here and who there. See, the more specific you are, the better chance you have. And then the last thing I wrote down, which I think is probably the most important, and I want you to think about this a lot. The last thing I wrote down was this. When you look at your list of centers of influence and past clients, do like my friend down in Atlanta did. Really determine which people are most likely going to give you referrals based upon the service you offer and the relationship you have. And once you determine that, I want to make sure that you're extending to them the common courtesy, the good communication, and the good service. And explain to them how you do business. Explain to them how you're going to treat the referrals that you're going to get. Remember, when all else fails, high-quality communication and high-quality service wins the game. You deserve to have a more predictable, duplicatable business coming from this absolute gold mine. There's no better gold mine in real estate than past clients and centers of influence. Let's start working it. Let's start developing it. Let's make it work for you. I know that it can.